Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, Masha Allah. Assalamu alaikum everyone, Masha Allah. The blessing of God, we're here to attend another Quran study. It's absolutely a blessing of God that He allowed us to be here, and we should be grateful to God. Inshallah, we will read here from Surah 58, verse 14. And so there's a bit of background on these verses. Typically, these are God talking about the time of, I think it's my understanding, the time of Prophet, because there's the instance of war is described here, this surah and the next surah. And but we need to learn lesson from these incidents. This is a blessing of God that He has put all this information for us to learn from these verses, that how these situations can affect us. I mean, these are not just one formula when it fits everything. Will be somewhere in between these categories. Mainly, God is trying to protect us, because the main learning thing, I think, is that the people who we hang out with have a strong effect on us. They can drain your battery or they can charge your battery. That is why God is telling us in Surah number 18 that force yourself to be with those, I'm paraphrasing, who day and night see God. And because this is how you hang up with people who are doing idol worship and wasting their life and just living their life, just having fun. Slowly you're gonna become like that. This is what you're gonna start desiring instead of desiring the hereafter. So here the heading says, choose your friends. Which side are you gonna choose? You cannot be on both sides. This is basically because there are two options we have, either God or Satan. So which side are we going to choose, basically? And that is really uh, shows your feeling, your how do you say it, who you're sincere with. So verse 14 starts, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So as we say, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Have you noted those who befriended people with whom God is angry? They neither belongs with you nor with them. They deliberately swear lies. God has prepared for them a severe retribution. Miserable indeed is what they used to do. They used their oaths as a mean of repelling from path of God. Consequently, they incurred a shameful retribution. Neither their money nor their children will help them against God. They have incurred the hellfire wherein they abide forever. So God is telling, I mean, this is God is talking with the messenger, basically, that have you noted? And literally, we can apply to us, that have you noted those who befriended people whom God is angry? So who God is angry with? Basically, those people, they fight against God's commandments. They fight with messengers. They repel from the path of God. All these categories are basically who God is angry with. If you go to the verse number 48, verse number 6, and it gives you a little bit understanding of what is being who God's angry with, and He will requite the hypocrite men and women, the idol worshipping men and women, for they have harbored evil thoughts about God. The evil will backfire against them, for God is angry with them and condemns them and has prepared for them Jahannam. What a miserable destiny. So God basically is angry with anyone who's hypocrite, disbelieving, idol worshipping, and they harbor evil thoughts about God. I mean, saying anything that is not God says, or associating. We learned that saying something that God says and which God did not say, these are all who's more evil, God says, than who says something about God that which God did not advocate. All these things, categories fits in anything that you go against God is gonna end up being on the wrong side. And these are the people who God is angry with them and condemns them and has prepared for them Jahannam. So these are the people that you don't want to be friend with, basically, in simple terms. But here uh, we learn from See, another verse that we read, basic law regulating relations with unbelievers. So here if you read verse 68, it reads, God does not enjoin you from befriending those who do not fight you because of religion and do not evict you from your homes. You may friend them, you may befriend them and be equitable towards them. God loves the equitable. So this is, if you read verse number 8, it sort of falls against the being friend. But if you read clearly, see, God does not say that God wants you to befriend. Okay, there are two negatives here. God does not enjoin, and then befriend from befriending. So there are two negatives here, and if you remove those two negatives, then the verse will change, because it will say God enjoins you to be friend with those who does not fight you in the religion. So then it will, the meaning changes, because that means God is telling you to be friend with those who does not fight you. But here God is giving you an option that God does not enjoin you. He's not stopping you. God said, I'm not stopping you that to not be friend with them. So this is an option that is open. And then God says that uh, who don't evict you from your home. And these are extreme levels have used. And you may friend them. I mean, it's an option that God is allowing you to be friend with them and be equitable towards them. And God does not love equitable. And so in a very simple situation where somebody is completely neutral, they don't argue with you, they don't cause you trouble or anything like that, they're just idol worshiper, disbelieving people, they're living about their life, and they're hypocrite or whatever they are, but they are absolutely neutral with you. God says you may friend them, you may friend them. But the thing is, if you read in the other verses, this is a very dangerous position to be, because when you hang out with these people and you love, and day and night I mean, you're loving relationship with them or having being good friend with them, slowly they're going to start draining your battery, because it goes completely against the words force yourself to be with those. So there's a little window of option, is my understanding, that you can be, but at the same time you are putting yourself in a very, very red zone. But if you read this verse, this is a very serious verse, because God is not talking about the hypocrite here. God is talking about those who befriend them. God is focused on, so there's a messenger and the believing community, and there's a people, they're fighting God, and they're the middle people. That's what God is talking about. The media. Have you noted those who befriend the angry people? Yeah. So God's talking about those middle people, and so who befriend people whom God is angry. Neither they belong to you, to prophet and the messenger believing community, nor with them whose God is angry. So these are the middle people. And what he's going to talk about, these people, they deliberately swear lies. So these people, the middle people, they swear to prophet or the messenger or the believing people that no, we are not friend with them, and we are with you. And then they go to their people and they do the same thing. These are the people that God talks about in the beginning of Surah number 2. They lies on both sides, and God's going to focus on these people. God has prepared for them a severe retribution. Miserable indeed is what they used to do. For these people, God is going to cause severe retribution. Not even talking about those who are angry, God. And they use their oaths as a mean of repelling from path. So these people are troublemaking, because they, I mean, obviously, someone that a person who's a believer and he's trying to be friend with wrong people, you may just want to be friend with them, but you could eventually, we may, I guess, find ourselves in this kind of situation where you are influenced by these people and end up causing all this trouble. But these people are literally, they're swearing, they're using oath and repelling the path of God. Consequently, they have incurred the shameful retribution. Neither their money nor their children will help them against God. They have incurred the hellfire wherein they abide forever. So again, these are the people, as we understand. Have you noted those who befriend people with whom God is angry? They neither belongs to you, with you, nor with them. So these are the somewhere in the middle people. They're deliberately, so for these, this is a very dangerous place to be. So uh, I don't know how we can further break this down, that who you want to be sincere with, because eventually this really happens if you gonna be, loving for being good friend or this and that. uh, these are like, looks like time of the messenger. They were coming and they're having war, and then God is going to talk further about evicting people and all that stuff that is going on. But in general terms, God is giving you a hint that watch out your company, because eventually, the whole purpose of this life is to see God, and these people, they may divert you from the path of God. So you meet someone and then you give them the message, as the messenger of the covenant explains, that you keep the relationship with them until they have give you a firm stand that they will not accept God, or they will not stop from their idol worship. At that time you can break off with them, but until then you can have a good relationship. And if they don't evict you from your home, God says that you may friend them, but I guess it's a very red zone. uh, and then God is saying, okay. So basically, one of the things I'm going to tell you here is that if you look at here, you hate somebody, and then there's a no neutral stand, and then there's place where you love. So, and then when you hate someone, this is the category, you're enemy with them, and then there's a neutral state, and then you love someone, and this is the friend state. As we know that the friend is the word is abused so much nowadays that if somebody will have like 1,000 friends in Facebook, and these are not your friends. A lot of people abuse this word friend a lot, that you just meet somebody one time and then you say, oh, I have a good friend I met over there. He's not your friend, you just met somebody. A friend is someone you hang out, a close relationship. You see them time to time, you talk to this person, somebody who just you met just a couple of times. That person, a friend is someone is who knows you. Then you break it down furthermore. I have a good friend, I have a best friend. So I mean, these are so many categories that we have made. Friend is someone who you just close with. You care about them. You know, so there's a big difference on the real friends and not friends. And then there are relatives that they are just, you cannot break off that relationship. You can hate a relative, but you cannot have a friend and you hate that person. Basically, these are not going to go. I mean, if you have a friend who you hate them, then they become your enemy. So, but a relative, someone you don't like is a different story. So inshallah, I'll read the next verse. Start the timer so that we don't. Okay. The day will come when God resurrects them all. They will swear to him then. They will swear to him then, just as they swear to you now, thinking that they really are right. Indeed, they are real liars. The devil has possessed them and has caused them to disregard God's message. These are the party of the devil. Absolutely, the party of the devil are the losers. Surely, those who oppose God and his messenger will be the lowliest. God has decreed, I and my messenger will most assuredly win. God is powerful, almighty. So again, the like this verse right here, these are very dangerous people, male people. But this is again the time of the messenger, and I don't know if you somebody who disobey God and disbelieve in God, and God is angry with these people too, because they are doing idol worship. How you will fit that? I mean, a smart person will just have a distance relationship with someone like that, maybe, because you don't want to be falling into this category right here. So the God is telling them that the day will come on the day of resurrection. They will again swear. They are so firm on their belief. They'll swear to God. They'll swear to him, talking about God, that then, just as they are swearing to you now. So again, talking to the messenger, that how they are telling you that no, they are not with these people. They're believing in God. And similarly, probably the Surah Munafiqun, when the people, they come to prophet and they say, we bear witness that you're messenger of God. God says these are people are liars. So basically, these all are, I guess, in the same category. They're swearing to the messenger, thinking they are really right. Indeed, they are real liars. So who's identifying them, the real liars? God is the one. God is telling they are the real liars. And and there's no doubt about it. No matter how many swords they can say to make their false statement true. As we know nowadays, you see traditional cultures, Islam, people they'll swear a lot about everything, that this is what it is, this is the right path, this and that, and it's very easy to identify. The devil has possessed them as they cause them to disregard God's message. These are the party of devil. Absolutely, the party of devils are losers. So God is going to talk about two parties here. Party of the devils. Same word is going to use. God is going to use, these are the party of God, and here God is saying these are the party of devil, because they're possessed by devil and cause them to disregard God's message. So absolutely, the party of devils are the losers. So remember these two parts, that these are the party of devils, and absolutely party of devils are the losers. Surely those who oppose God and his messenger will be the lowliest. So anyone who opposes God and his messenger, because messenger basically is bringing God's message. So you oppose messenger, you're basically opposing God. It's a very straightforward system. You send you in a company, you send a messenger to send a message. They oppose the messenger, basically they're opposing you, in simple term. And God has decreed that I and my messenger will surely win. God has decreed, this is the God's law, that God and his messenger will surely win. No matter how many tricks the devil plays on people, or people follow devil, or whatever they do, at the end of the day, God says that God and his messenger will win. God is powerful, almighty. So he possesses all the power, no matter what policies people do. The other day he was reading that I think the last Quran study, anything that happened has already been recorded, and this is easy for God to do. So from before even humans were created, God has already have all the each human being, and when they were originally born, and then coming to this world, and then going to the hell, everything is all recorded in a book. And this is, God says, it's easy for God to do. It's And so if the one who knows all the everybody's innermost thoughts, and who knows the future, how can you cannot, no matter what you do, God already know what your plans are, what you're going to do. Like Mr. Covenants talks about the Joseph story, that when they were planning about their brother, whether they were thinking what to do with him, they were not thinking, it was already made. He saw the dream way before that the 11 stars are prostrating him. Way before that, he already saw that. So God already knows our plan, and his plans are always ahead of us. And then this is where God is telling us, run for your life. You will learn more. God says there's a lesson for us to learn from all this. So run for your life. Basically, this is, this statement is some in a very dangerous situation you would use. Like if it is a building on fire, you said run for your life. There's like some disease coming, or there's some wild beast coming, you're in the jungle, it says run for your life. So where you really have to, this is the headline is used, that you will not find people who believe in God and the last day befriending those. Yeah, okay, yeah. This is actually copy of, in a way, of the first verse that have you noted, who befriend, right? So it's very interesting to read this one. This the more definition. You will not find people who believe in God and the last day befriending those who oppose God and his messenger. This verse even clarifies the verse number, the verse we read before. Even if they were their parents, or their children's, or their siblings, or their tribe, for these God decreed faith in their hearts, and support them with inspiration from him, and admits them to garden with flowing streams, wherein they abide forever. God is pleased with them, and they are pleased with him. These are the party of God. Most surely, party of God are the winners. So basically, God does not, if you believe in God and the last day, and God says you will not find those who really believe. So if you are being friend with whom God is angry with him, who oppose God and his messenger, if you're being friend with them, so then you will not be falling in this category who believe in God and the last day. Basically, you're out of it. So then like you're friend with who God's enemy with, so you're not in the believing category. And then no matter how swear you tell other people that no, I swear I'm a believer, I believe in the day of last resurrection, but God is saying that you will not find anybody who believes in God in the last day. You will not be friend with who oppose God and his messenger. And as you can see that a lot of even traditional Islam, that people are opposing the messenger of the covenant. So that's in terms they are on the wrong side. So if you are friend with somebody who oppose God and his messenger, you will automatically come out of this believing category, basically. In nowadays, as you know, that there's so many people who oppose messenger of the covenant. And if you're being friend with them, just think about where it will put you. You will not find people on the day who believe in the God and the last day befriending those who oppose God and his messenger, even if they were their parents or their children's or their siblings or their tribe. So how do you process this part of the information? And this is very clear. It's very easy. I mean, you give somebody a message, they refuse it, and after they come to a firm stand, you cannot be friend with them. Basically, I guess this is how it is. You can have a neutral relationship, maybe. Just them. They are, yeah. You respect them because they are your parents, especially your parents. But you cannot have like a caring relationship, I guess, with them or something. I don't know. This is a very, very serious verse here, because this verse is gonna take you out of the believing factor. Very. I mean, that inshallah we'll talk more about these verses. These are very, very. And then God says, if you believe in God and the day of resurrection, and so you're not friending with these people, what happens for these? See the word for these. He decreed faith into your hearts. He will enter faith in your heart. God is the one. It's not you putting it. You follow, you do all this, and you run away from some people. The God is angry with. God does not like those people, or they're against God. They oppose. I mean, basically, if you even if you uphold baseless hadith, you are putting something next to God. You are opposing God. God tells you to follow what I have sent down, but you have something else beside God. So basically, you are opposing God, and where it's going to land you on the opposite side. But if you do what God is telling you, what's going to happen is, in your heart, God's going to put more faith, and he's going to support you with inspiration from him. See, if you're getting, when we read some about people, they're very successful, they inspire you, but this kind of natural inspiration and support's coming from God, and the faith is being increased. And then he says he admits you into the flowing gardens with flowing streams, and where they abide forever. So this is what the result is going to be, and God is pleased with them. See, the result is so immense that you would you want to be in that category? Possibly. God is pleased with them, and they are pleased with him. These are the party of God. Most assuredly, God's party are the winners. So these are the party of God, and as we read, I'm sorry, right here, it was somewhere, the party of devil. These are the party of devils right here. So you have only two choices, basically. We can swear as much we want, but at the end of the day, this is how it comes down to. Um, how if you look at the word opposing is the opposite. That's basically what it is. How one is opposing, and if you just Google it, it's just in conflict or competition with a specified or implied subject. So basically, you are in a competition with some implied subject. Simply God says do this, and you either don't do it, or you have other leaders that you follow, then you're opposing God, basically. And then here the next surah starts, and it's Exodus. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Glorifying God is everything in the heavens and the earth, and he's almighty, most wise. He's the one who evicted those who disbelieved among the people of the scripture from their homes in a mass exodus. You never thought that they would leave, and they thought that their preparation would protect them from God. But then God came to them whence they never expected, and threw terror in their hearts. Thus, they abandoned their homes in their own violation. In addition to pressure from the believers, you should learn from this, O you who possess vision. So, see the end part, O you who possess
On their
vision, that
own
you should learn from all
volition.
this. What's happening?
It's sorry, I was just gonna say it's volition.
Sorry. Okay. On their own. Okay, I'm sorry. On their own. Oh, okay. Not. Okay, maybe there's a word missing here. Volition. Okay. Volition, right? Volition. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for clarifying the word. I'm sorry. So here we read God is glorifying everything. Glorifying God is everything. I mean, in the heavens and the earth. So this is basically God is telling us that everyone is obeying God. Everyone is worshiping God. Everyone is aware of God, even down to the disbelieving people and hypocrites. Their body, their everything, their heart is beating in according with God. Their liver is functioning in according with God. Their kidneys and their muscles, everything is obeying God. You tell your muscle, you pick up something and it follows. Your command comes into your arm, and God is this is how God designed it. Your hand will always follow whichever direction you move it. It's according, whether you are controlling with God. This is God's system that God has allowed and made it work like that. And what if you hit with stroke? Then you cannot move your body at all, and how would you say that can you control yourself anymore? So everything is obeying God, and that's why God uses these kind of statements. That glorifying God is everything in the heavens and the earth, to for us, for the human and the jinn, to think about it, that everybody's glorifying and obeying God. What about you? Are you gonna do the same thing? Because He's the Almighty, most wise. You live in accordance with God's commandment. Everything falls in the right spot. And so again, this surah is connected with the previous surah, where those messenger and then the people disbelieving, God is angry with them, and there's middle people and all this stuff going on. And here, I don't know exactly where this incident took place. I guess maybe when they were coming back to Mecca or something, or I don't know which exactly how it is. But this is where we learned that He's the one who evicted those who disbelieving among the people of the scripture from their homes in mass exodus. So these people, they left, and how they left is very amazing. That how sometimes you can be like, you live in a house and you see a ghost in your home, you see some evil or fear, and you run away from your home. You say, I don't want to live in this house. You're so scared to go in that house. How that happens? In some similar way, I guess we learned that these people, they just run away from their homes, and without even fight or anything. He's the one, God is the one who evicted them, because these were disbelieving people. And these were, if you read this part of the verse, the people of the scripture. And these are not people who just have no, these probably from the previous books, or these people had the book. These are people of scripture from their own homes in mass exodus. You never thought they would ever leave. So you in your mind, you thought they will never leave. This is their home, and they're more powerful maybe. And they thought, and these people themselves, they thought that their preparation would protect them from God. This is what's inside in their mind, that they build their houses in a way, and such a strong, that they thought that no tornado or nothing can come and evict them. God evicted them in a way that their homes were not even destroyed. They left in fear. And the building, I mean, that's we understand from these verses, that nothing was destroyed, but they left in fear and left the homes for the believing community. But then God came to them whence they never expected. They had everything calculated. They say, okay, for this we have that, for this we have that. But God came from whence, from in a way they could never even think. See, this is how we should be reverencing God, that God will make things that we can't even imagine. Something that, if you're on the wrong side of the choice, your friends are in the wrong side, then things can go really wrong, and through into their hearts. and they're so fearful. Thus, they abandon their own homes. God says, abandon their homes in evolution. In addition to presence from the pressure from the believers, so there obviously they had some pressure from the believers. Mainly, the God is the one who put fear in their heart. They left, and you should learn from this. Hope you possess uh, vision. I mean, if you're on the wrong side, basically, you will suffer. And as we read right here, this part, he decreed faith in your heart and supports you with inspiration from him. And all the faith and support and inspiration comes from God, and only it comes from God if you obey God. If you're on the wrong side, if you disbelieve in God, or if you are causing trouble, and you lie, swear, you try to fool yourself, your own soul, we need to sit down and examine ourselves, who we are sincere with, basically. If you And then next verse is, if God did not force them to leave, he would have requited them in this life even worse than forcing them to leave. In the hereafter, he will commit them to the retribution of hell. This is because they oppose God and his messenger. For those who oppose God and his messenger, God is most strict in forcing God is most strict in enforcing retribution. So here we see a little bit of mercy of God on these people, because if God did not force them to leave, then their requital would come right away in this life, and even worse than forcing them to leave. So this is, in a way, God is giving them, if they really think about it, this is a blessing for them, that God has given them more time to, maybe they can change. But if you get requited with God in this world, and basically you're done. God could have God evicted them. God put them like other communities that we learn, like Lot and other people, where the whole community was wiped off. God could have wiped these people off. God could have uh, uh, spread some kind of plague, some kind of disease. They would have died in their own homes, and then they will have no more. And their homes will be still be standing for other people to use. And God can send in many forms retribution, but God evicted them, so they left and they went somewhere. Maybe they can learn. God says even worse than forcing them to leave. So that would be worse in a way. Uh, in the hereafter, He will commit them to the retribution of hell. So in the hereafter, that is something that is already set for them. But in this life, they have another chance, and that's why a lot of time we learn from somebody who's very bad, but and we learn that he's still nothing's happening to that person, is because maybe God is giving him more time, or letting him just live blunderly in his in their disbelief, to, okay, go enjoy whatever you want to enjoy, or one of those things. Probably this is because they oppose God and his messenger. For those who oppose God and his messenger, God is most strict in forcing them. So this is the people, they basically, who oppose God and messenger, they uh, God is angry with them. I guess, the middle people, slowly, if you're in the middle people, you will surely fall into the wrong side. You cannot come on this side unless you take heed. If you keep following that middle, you're all in one party, because basically there's only two parties: party of God or party of devil, basically. And then the next verse is, whether you chop a tree or leave it standing on its trunk is in accordance with God's will. He will surely humiliate and wicked. He will surely humiliate the wicked. Whatever God restored for his messengers was not the result of your war efforts. Whether you fought on horse or on foot, God is the one who sends his messenger against whomever he wills. God is omnipotent. So whatever you decide in life, you decide to chop a tree or not. Just a simple example, God is saying, is in accordance with God. Mm, Like, we think we make choices. We think we do this, we do that. We really don't do anything. Everything is in accordance with God, because this is the example that God is telling to the messenger and the believing community, that whatever you did, whatever God resorted for his messenger, was not the result of your war efforts. So you're thinking, even God is telling to the messenger, the wars that you fought, do you think that, that brought change into everything? No, it was not the result of your efforts. Whatever you fought, whether you fought on horses or on your foot, however, like in a simple term, whatever weapons you have, or however, how many people you have, that does not affect. God is the one who sends his messenger against whomever he wills. God is omnipotent. God is the one who's doing all this. And you could be like, as we learn from the traditional stories, that there were very few people in the messenger side, and there were like 1,000 on the other side, but God still gave victory to those small group. So it's not, we just, if you just do what God is telling you, God will take care of everything else. He will put faith in your heart. It will strong you. It make you stronger. Support from God. He will inspire you. I mean, all these inspiration that comes from God is going to keep you going strong. And then the spoils of war. So this is after the war that happened. Whatever God restored it, whatever God restored to his messenger from the defeated communities shall go to God and his messenger. In the form of a charity, you shall give it to the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the traveling alien. Thus, it will not remain monopolized by the strong among you. You may keep the spoils given to you by the messenger, but do not take what he enjoins you from taking. You shall reverence God. God is strict in enforcing. God is strict in enforcing retribution. There's two sides. God is strict in enforcing retribution. So when they went to the war, and they got a lot of stuff from the war. So how God is defining that whatever God restored to his messenger from defeated community shall go to God and his messenger in the form of charity. So whatever God goes to God, that eventually will go to poor and needy. And then he said, you shall give it to the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the traveling aliens. So the money, or all that came to prophet or the messenger, and God is telling you shall give to the relatives, the orphans, and the poor, and the traveling alien. Thus, it will not remain monopolized by, because normally we see the strong people, they will claim most of the property that is, that comes, whether they go into new land and they conquer the land, and it will, they will take, okay, the rich and powerful say, I own all this land and I'm going to grow agriculture on it, and you poor people will work on this. This is called monopolizing. But here we learned that when they go to the war and they get the goods that from that community and the land, the God said it has to be divided among. So suppose there are some believing group in your community, they're poor but they're believers, so you can give them part of the land where they can grow their own agriculture or something. They can support and build a home or something. And as we learned from the previous right here, that they run in terror. Yes, maybe we can understand this one, that way they went to this city or somewhere, and people, they just ran in terror. How they ran in, the most likely, that my understanding is probably when the believers were coming, and I mean, I don't have the background here, but it's just, I'm thinking that how God gives like angels coming along with them. So they saw this mass powerful army coming with angels and everything. They got so afraid and they just run away. Maybe that's one of the situation is God is discussing here. And then God says, when you come to that community, you have houses and all that stuff, you shall, it will go to God and his messenger, and the messenger will divide it in among the poor people who really need it. The traveling alien, maybe there's some people they join with them, or some poor people and orphans that they don't have homes to live, and all these things will be appropriately divided. And then God says that you may keep the spoils giving by you. A messenger give you something that you can keep, but do not take what he enjoins you from taking. He tells you, do not take that. Only you can. This is what you can take. So you just obey messenger. Basically, you obey the messenger. You obey God, and God is strict enforcing and retribution. So if you're gonna play any game, God knows our innermost thoughts. And if you play any, violate any of these rules, basically you are on the wrong side. And suppose we can learn that we are not in the situation right now because there's no messenger. But in similar way, Quran talks a lot about God's commandments, just like as these were commandments for these people, and we have commandments in the Quran that decreed for us. And if we violate those commandments, then we are falling on the wrong side. In the similar way, And then God says that you shall give to the needy who immigrated. They were evicted from their homes and deprived from their for, and deprived of their properties because they sought God's grace and pleasure, and because they supported God and His messenger. They are the truthful. As for those who provided them with a home and a refuge, they are believers before them. They are believers before them. They love them who immigrated to them and find no hesitation in their hearts in helping them. In fact, they readily give them. In fact, they readily give them priorities over themselves, even when they themselves need what they give away. Indeed, those who overcome their natural stinginess are the successful. Those who became believers after them say, "Our Lord, forgive us and our brethren who preceded us to the faith, and keep our hearts from harboring any heart hatred towards those who believed. Oh, our Lord, you are compassionate, most merciful." I think I'm not very good on reading today. Okay, so you shall give to the needy, anybody who's immigrated. God is, encouraging us. They have been evicted from their homes and deprived because they sought God. Because of that reason, they've been evicted. And then you should, and that can easily, that can apply to someone if you know someone that has happened, and you should help that person. They are the truthful ones. As for those who provided them with a home and a refuge and are believers before them, so if you do that, if you provided somebody who needed money or place to live and all that, and then God's talking about these people, and they love them who migrated them and find no hesitation in their hearts in helping them. Sometimes you have, the person is a believer or something like that, and then you still, not willingly do it, but you do it because God has decreed it. But God is saying they find no hesitation in their hearts in helping them, and in fact they readily give them priority over themselves. Readily, I mean, they're excited. There's nothing stopping them. I mean, how often do we feel that over themselves, even when they themselves need what they give away? And just imagine that this is, even you have limited food, you say, I'm eating twice a day barely, and then I'm going to give one to this person. I'm just going to eat once a day. Or you have, maybe in those times, maybe you have just two pieces of clothes. You give one to this person or whatever in case maybe, you know. And then God said, indeed, those who overcome their natural stings are the successful ones, because they understand this system. It's not the worldly life they're looking after. They want to give. This, they know this is the success, and they are actually, in fact, the lucky ones, because they get a chance to help those who been evicted from their homes because they sought God's grace and pleasure. Imagine that you find somebody like that. It would be so awesome to find somebody like that. I mean, nowadays, you probably won't even find somebody who's sincerely believing God, and this is because of this reason they were evicted. I mean, you'll be lucky to find this person, and if you ever find this person, something like that, I mean, you should feel no hesitation in your heart, because you are the lucky chooser one who has given this opportunity to do this commandment right here, verse number 8. I mean, not everybody get the chance for this. So in similar way, there's so many other commandments in the Quran that God is telling us, and we are the lucky ones to do those. Just like this is a commandment, and very lucky ones that get to do this. But if you read the Quran, there's so many other commandments, and we should feel lucky. I mean, even giving charity to the poor people. If there's no poor people, everybody have been rich, and who are you going to give money to? So when you see somebody who need, or give charity to your relatives, your parents, or anybody else in the similar way, we should really feel lucky that we are in that category, that we are able to fulfill God's commandment. Even when you are in need, you should still give. And then here God is talking about, after these people, the people came, those who become believers after them. So here are these evicted people, and they're believers, and other community, they help them. And then there's a third group that they came after they become a believer, and they are praying to God, our Lord, forgive us and our brethren who preceded us to the faith. See, proceeded. So they are praying to God, please God forgive us and our brethren who from which we learn and became a believer and proceeded into the faith after these people, and keep our hearts from harboring any hatred towards those who believed our Lord. And they're basically praying the same thing, that uh, keep our heart from harboring any hatred towards those who believe. I mean, what a connection these three verses have. Our Lord, you are compassionate, most merciful. And they're telling God, God, you are the compassionate, most merciful. Keep us in that, our belief strong. And see, that's why these prayers are so important for us, so that we don't get away. I mean, coming to submission is easy. Dying as a submitter is a tough part, because it's like an assembly line. The fruits are coming. You see, like, if you Google it, like, from apple farms, and there's a belt coming, and then all the rotten ones slowly gonna be fallen off, the small ones, and at the end you have is the fresh, juicy apples. And this is how submission is. I mean, if you don't strive, eventually you're gonna fall off the belt, basically. I mean, you see the example of somebody who's walking on the rope. If you're not careful enough, you're going to fall down. And this is how basically walking on that rope in this world. And the verse 11 says, have you noted those who plague who have you noted those who are plagued with hypocrisy, and how they say to their companions in disbelief among the people of the scripture, if you are evicted, we will go out with you, and we will never obey any one who oppose you. If anyone fights you, we will fight on your side. God bears witness that they are liars. In fact, if they were evicted, they would not have gone out with them. If anyone fought, if anyone fought them, they would have not supported them. Even if they supported them, they would not. They would have turned around and fled. They could never win. See, the party of devil are liars. Basically, that's what God is saying. That they will never. Just like devil says, we're gonna read more about that. That it says that devil tells you disbelieve in God, and you disbelieve, you run away. So these people who are plagued with hypocrisy, and how they're telling their companions. So if you go back to the previous surah where we were talking about the three groups, who got angry with the believers and the middle people. So even maybe they are the God is angry with. They're talking to the middle people that we will support you. Don't worry about that. We will be there. You are our companion in this belief in the scripture. And they say, if they evict you, they say, don't worry about it. We are with you. We're gonna support you. And if and we'll never obey anyone who opposes you. So they're trying to give them false hope, that don't worry, we will be there. Yeah, and that's, we know that we hear that a lot from, don't worry, I'll be there for you, this and that. But when time comes, you don't see them. And then they further say, if anyone fights you, we will fight on your side. God is telling all these are lies. God bear witness, they are liars. If God is bearing witness, there is no doubt. It shall be in our heart that if there's a disbeliever, someone says, no matter how many promises they tell you, God said these are in fact liars. And then God's telling you the option, even if they happen, if this happen, if they fight, at the end, if some of things will happen, at the end they will run away. And because even if they support you, and they would have turned around and fled, they could never win. So because they are afraid of their life, they are afraid of death, and they have terror in their heart, they're fearful people. This is how God's system is, basically. If you do what God tells you, everything falls in the right spot. And then God says, indeed, you strike more terror in their hearts than their fear for God. This is because they are people who do not comprehend. They do not get together to fight you unless they are in well shielded buildings or behind walls. Their might appears formidable among themselves. You would think that they are united when in fact their hearts are divided. This is because there are people who do not understand. Their fate is the same as their counterparts who preceded them. They suffered the consequences of their decisions they have incurred a painful retribution. And God is telling them that, because of the coming, and they put terror in their hearts, God says, you did even more terror, you know because God says, mainly God is the one who put fear and terror in the heart, but what our believers did, it's a small portion of that. God said, with your small effort, they got more fearful than their fear actually for God. It is how bad that is, that this small effort causes them to be more fearful than right here their fear for God. So that's how they're so heedless in their belief that they don't fear God. It's very small portion of their whole system. And this is because these people do not comprehend, because they don't understand the whole system. And God said, they do not get together to fight you unless they are in well shielded buildings. See, this is how fearful they are. I mean, when they are like secured, they when there's very little chance for them to die, that's when they're gonna be bluffing, and or fighting with you, or behind walls like castles. And their might appears formidable among themselves. They are blunder. They are like, oh, I can do that. I'm this. Just like in the previous verse, God is talking about. They will say, we will protect you. We will be with you when you evicted you. All talk, 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 talk. And unless they are in this secured environment, uh, they will feel a little bit, that what do they think that God's the God's judgment will not come when they are in their formidable castles. Imagine when someplace they were talking about that God is telling them to go fight with the messenger, and they're fearful. They go back, they make excuses. And I think I'm paraphrasing, God says that, at the crawling in their deathbed, and when, like, here messengers go to fight with the people, and they're scared, they stay behind, and then they go to their homes. The God says the verse, the phrase that says they will be crawling into their deathbed. Imagine that. This is how straightforward God is talking. You would think that they are united. In fact, their hearts are divided. This is because they are people who do not understand. You know, God is telling the messenger that, don't think that they're united, as the previous verses support this verses. In fact, they're, when in fact their hearts are divided. They among themselves are divided. Within themselves is divided. Even their heart is divided. That they don't. Who are they gonna be with? They're not with God. Devil has abandoned them, because this is what he's gonna do. As we can, I think, read in the next verse, that as soon as you say I disbelieve, he was gonna leave you. He's gonna say, I'm fearful of God. I think it's gonna be somewhere here. And here this God is saying that their fate is same as their counterparts that preceded them, and the consequence of decisions, and it's a painful retribution. They are like devil. He said to the human being, disbelieve. Then as soon as he disbelieves, he says, I disown you. I fear God, Lord of the universe. The destiny of both of them are hellfire, wherein they bide forever. This is the acquittal for the transgressors. This is the trick of devil. I mean, you are basically homeless, stranded on the road in a situation. You're not on the God side, and the one who promised you is abandoned you, and you by yourself alone. The party of God, you have full support of God, and you're in God's kingdom. You're happy now and forever. But whoever opposes God, this is where you end up. Even the one who's the devil is telling you to disbelieve, then, as soon as you disbelieve, he says, I disown you. I fear God, the Lord of the universe. But what God is saying, this is the devil's statement, right? But God is saying the destiny of both of them are hellfire. I mean, even though you say, I fear God, the Lord of the universe, and I know a lot of people say that, but that statement itself does not save you from the day of retribution until you have a firm stand in your heart that who you sincere with. You can say all we want. Doesn't make me. I can say, somebody can say I'm a millionaire, or I'm this and I'm that. Unless you really are, you know, what will they tell you? Show me your bank balance. Show me where the actions are. So this is the devil's statement, and God is telling them, you both are going to be in there, and this is the requital for the transgressors. And I mean, in this one way you can think is the devil is at least saying that he's fearful of God, but I don't think that's going to benefit him anymore, benefit him any way. But a lot of disbelieving people, they don't even say that I disown you, I fear God, the Lord of the universe. They don't even they're just on one side. Okay, then verse number 18, and this is where inshallah we will stop. O you who believe, you shall reverence God, and let every soul examine what it has sent ahead for tomorrow. You shall reverence God. God is fully cognizant of everything you do. Do not be like those who forget God. So he made them forget themselves. These are the wicked. Not equal are the dwellers of the hellfire and the dwellers of paradise. The dwellers of the paradise are the winners. And God is talking to believers, O you who believe. You shall reverence God and let every soul examine what it has sent ahead for tomorrow. So God is, because we are free from making our choices. There's no, uh, you know, uh, compulsion in the religion. You cannot force somebody to believe or something. And for believing community, God is saying, let every soul examine. Let them do whatever they want. You can just only tell people which is the right path, what they're supposed to do, and if they choose to do whatever they want to do, let them do it, because that's the whole purpose we are here for. We're not here to force anybody or anything. Everybody's on their own free will. I don't know why people sometimes get upset because you tell them thing, this is what it's supposed to do, and basically what's wrong with that? I mean, not nobody's forcing anyone. This is the right path. You want to do it, you do it. And similarly, uh, in a way, God is telling the believers that don't stress out or anything. Your parents, your sister, sibling, or anyone, you know, let them do whatever they want, and you shall reverence God. And don't be like those who forget God. And telling the believing people, don't be like those who forget God, because what's going to happen? He's going to make them forget themselves. What does it mean by forgetting themselves? Forgetting yourself, because yourself is the soul. Okay, and this body is just a garment. So if you become, this is made of the earthly matter. So if you get involved in earthly material, house, living, and just expenses, and just enjoying life, so the real part of you, the soul, you forgot that part. So you're living in this world, so God said you will forget yourself, themselves. That's what you forget. And this what we see with our eyes, it's not whom we are. Whatever we see with our eyes, that's not what we are. Our soul is another thing that's actually we are. As soon we get to our destination, and it's just like leaving your car. You come out of your car and then you meet yourself. This is what you are. And that's what's going to happen if you forget God. This is the result going to be. These are the wicked. Not equal are the dwellers. And this is a very straightforward, I mean, of course, this is black and white completely. I mean, God is going so far to say equal, and as we know, equal is something that is coming closer to each other, but this is like completely off. One is completely lost and completely winning people. So all in all, that just to think about it, that the obeying God, and choosing your friends, because these people have gonna have strong influence over you. You hang out with these people, I mean, you are sincere, you're caring, and then you like, then what's gonna happen is over time, you slowly, even Messenger of the Covenant says one statement where he's discussing all these verses that God is enjoying you being friend with who doesn't fight you in the cause of God and all that stuff. So at the end, he makes a statement, a very amazing statement. I said, "Do you really want to be a friend with somebody who I do idol worship? Do you really? I mean, just a question without asking for any answer. Do you really want to be a friend with somebody who does idol worship? Because the skies and the is like ready to thunder and shatter with the people who says commit idol worship, as we learn in this different verses, mashallah. So inshallah, I'll stop here. I'm sorry about some of the reading. I was just having a little trouble reading today for some reason. Inshallah, ask open for comments and any clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Masha Allah. Great stuff.
Masha Allah, Adam.
Um,
Beautiful
I had a
study.
few
Praise
comments.
God. Thank you.
Uh, mashallah. So I just had a few comments. So, mashallah, I mean, these verses are very, very, fundamental for a submitter, because, especially when it comes to, uh, choosing our friends carefully. And we see these people, more often than we like to, people who, because, God clearly tells us not to befriend people with whom God is angry, but you see these people befriend them and disregard God's commandments. And God said this is because the devil has possessed you know. So yeah, so wanted to talk about the parents and the siblings, so because I know a lot of people have questions about this usually, but I mean it's very clear to me from reading the Quran that if your parents or your siblings or whoever it is, if they're not if they're not opposing God, like if they haven't taken a stand, if they're neutral, a neutral person is one that is not opposing. Once they're no longer neutral and they've taken a stand, they're in opposition, right? So somebody who's not against your beliefs, and is respectful towards your religion, those people are potential believers. Then now, at the point where your parent or your siblings or any one of these people decide to take a stand, like absolutely say, no, this is, they tell you that this is from Satan, you're brainwashed, whatever, and there's no way I'm going to believe this thing. At that point, this person's an enemy of God, right? So, because that person's professed their disbelief, they're a disbeliever. So God says, about these people, God says, run for your lives. So basically, we cannot run from our lives from people that God says you run from them, and then maintain some sort of an amicable relationship with them, right? I mean, we're not talking about befriending. I think we're saying that you don't befriend them, but you maintain respectful relation with them. But that's not how I see it. You run for your life. Basically, once they profess their disbelief and they're in opposition, you disown them. That's why God says, "You shall disown God's enemies." Abraham disowned his father, right? Abraham. It's not just about saying, "Well, he was." People say, "Well, he wanted to kill him" and stuff like that. Yeah, he wanted to kill him, but the reason was not because he wanted to kill him that he ran away. He ran away because he became an enemy of God because he professed his disbelief. He made it clear to Abraham that there's no way he is going to believe. So so it says, if you look at the words carefully, it doesn't say that once he realized that he wanted to kill him. It says once he realized that he was destined for hell, you know, he disowned him, right? So once you realize that your parent or your siblings or your spouse or whatnot, whoever this person might be, once you realize there's no way this person's going to believe, at that point you have to run for your life. You disown that person, basically for your own good. And I would say that it's not an easy thing, but God, if someone's truly a believer, it will happen naturally. And we have other examples also. We have example from the Quran. We have examples from God's Messenger of the Covenant. We have many other examples, right? So it doesn't matter who this person is, because these relations that we have now, they're only these worldly, in worldly life, we are, parents, siblings, all those things, in order to test us, so God put these people in our lives for us to be tested in this way, to see whether we'll obey God's commandments or not. And that's why we see in Surah 60, the test where it talks about this in a bit more detail. Now, um, so that's one thing I wanted to mention, and I think probably you can come back to me later for other comments. That's what I wanted to share for right now.
Yeah, Masha Allah, the parties say that naturally it will happen into your heart that if you are firm on your belief and if somebody is opposing God, I mean, think about it. I was talking to somebody the other day, and then and we have a similar kind of stuff going on. I said, "Oh, what's wrong with it? Somebody have their own belief." He said, how we love our parents. Like suppose my mother, somebody says something bad about my mother, wouldn't you get angry about that person? And here we're talking about God, who gave me my mother, who gave me everything, who's created me from initially. So if somebody's idolizing or enemy of God, do you expect me to be respecting that person? I mean, don't expect me to respect that person. I will, or be friend with that person. I mean, I can talk to that person, but don't expect me to be kind or something to that person.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. Well, when you disown a person, that's very different than maintaining any sort of relations with that person. When you run for your life from someone, you don't maintain any sort of relations with them, right? That's what disowning is. You cut your ties with that person basically, because otherwise you're contradicting the verse. God says Abraham was extremely kind and clement, right? But God says he disowned his father. Now, you can't disown someone and still keep talking to them, right? I mean, that's common sense. Once you disown someone, you cut off your ties with them, And we see people do that in this world over worldly things, over small things, People don't speak to their parents for years over little things, or parents not speaking to their children, right? But we don't see people doing it for God. But really, the scenario where it fits is when it comes to God. Once a person professes their disbelief that they're against this religion and you're following the devil and all that stuff, and they're not going to believe, then you sever ties with them basically. But as long as they don't do that, they're neutral, they're respectful, then there's hope for them. Then they're potential believers, and they can become better submitters than me and you. But once they declare their disbelief and you realize that this person's not going to believe, then it's a choice that the believers make, and God says the believers will always make the right choice.
I mean, how do you manage the charity part on that? You don't talk to them at all if your parent is
you
completely
don't
give you a
you
firm
don't
stand,
give them charity. You don't have to give them charity. you know if you disown them, why would you give them charity?
or talk to them and like once in a
Yeah,
while
why
or
would you?
something? Yeah,
I
completely sever
wouldn't.
ties, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, disown, that's what disowning is.
Yeah, you're right. People disown relatives on money matters and other small things. Don't talk for years.
Yeah.
Why not for God?
But I remember Messenger saying you would still help them, you would still give charity to them, your parents and stuff, if they don't fight you. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if they don't
I'm
fight,
not sure
that's
what.
when they're neutral, right? I mean,
Yeah, they don't fight you, and then they
that's
say
when
peace
they're.
to you, you know. Yeah, if as long as they
So at
don't
that
become
point, they're
like
potential people,
active.
right?
Mm, well, I don't know if they're potential or not, but uh, once years go by and you have given somebody a message, I'm just saying, wondering,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they have rejected a message, but they don't fight you. Where do such people stand? Don't say,
Yeah.
uh,
Sorry.
even
Yeah, I
some
mean,
people would go
go
up
ahead.
to this point that
So
they
the
have
messenger,
quite a bit
yeah.
carried their weight, stopped, stopped following. And so I'm just giving some examples of some people I know that you
Hmm.
have talked to them over years,
Hmm.
and they understood one part, that they must follow Quran alone. They're not setting up idols beside God, and they don't follow these and sunnah, but they're stuck on the part about the messenger, and they don't want to talk about it. They say, well, let's not talk about that. um, and they say we follow Quran alone, but they don't want to follow the AEVQ, or the authorized English version of Quran and all that. So um, I have such people like that in my life. Um, I don't know. So it's a test, man.
So I would say,
Yeah,
the
I
like
mean
the
you
I
have
think the
many
Messenger of the Covenant also talks about this, and yeah, so I was saying, I know the Master of the Covenant also talked about that, and he said, you have to judge at that point. You know the person, you have to use your judgment. Like, really, is this person going to believe there? You think there's a chance? Like, a person can tell you, for example, they don't want to talk about it, right? But you have to make that judgment call whether this person really doesn't ever want to talk about it, like he hates it, or this person doesn't want to talk about it, let's say
Mhm.
today, or what, like what is the situation, right?
Interesting.
But at some
Right.
point you will, knowing that person and knowing your situation with them, you'll know how averse this person is to the message. Like, for example, in my case, I would say, like, my parents at first were a bit defensive, and like, a little bit on the offensive side, but they didn't accept it, and they didn't say any kind words about it, obviously, or about my religion. But they weren't like actively against it per se very much, but they were a little bit. But I knew that this was just like new thing for them and all that, but I didn't really do anything. But as the years went by, they don't say anything to me about my religion, and if I talk to them, they're not against it. Like, yeah, when I talk to them about it, like when I try to preach it to them in any way, like it just goes over their heads in a way. But they don't oppose it or say, just keep your religion to yourself, or this man is crazy, or anything like that, Rashad is crazy, or they don't say any of those things, right? So I just maintain respectful relations with them. Like, I'm not very close to them, but at the same time, like, I just maintain amicable relations with them, and help them whatever way, like, you should with your parents. But if it came to the point where your parents told you that you're following the devil, and this and that, and you don't talk about this religion with me or whatnot, like, you disown them. Like the Messenger of the Covenant, and we know from the example of the Messenger of the Covenant, he gave his father time. He gave him a few months where he was coming to the masjid, and to Tucson, I believe. He was coming with them, and seeing the religion and whatnot. And then at one point, and I think I've played that audio too. At one point, he said his father made a stand at one point, and he said, "I'm not gonna step foot in this masjid. I'm not gonna walk inside this masjid until you put Muhammad's name next to God's." Right? And then Rashad was his favorite son, and he was very respectful to his father too. Uh, but he told him, and he loved him, but he told him at that point, it was taken away, and at that point, he told him, he says, well, he says, as long as you believe that way, he says, you are not allowed to step foot in this masjid, because God says that the idol worshippers are filth. And he said, I had to use those words with my father at that point. And so basically that was it. And then obviously his father wanted him killed and all that at that point. But the thing is, God says, I mean, if we don't confuse it, once you realize your parent or your spouse or your not well sibling or anybody is and is a disbeliever, God says disbeliever is an enemy of God. He's not a potential submitter. This person's a disbeliever. Then at that point, you don't befriend these people, and God says you disown God's enemies, right? So you ask yourself, is this person a disbeliever? Yes. Is a disbeliever an enemy of God? Yes. Should you disown God's enemies? Yes. you know so it's a simple deduction, but you have to obviously make that judgment call. Like, there's no absolute formula I can give you that a person will say this and this exactly this point that definitely means this or that. You have to make that judgment based on your knowledge about that person, and then make that call at that point.
So one clarification I want to ask you is that God says don't befriend with them. So there's like that like three categories, being neutral and you oppose them, you angry with them. So God is using the word far right side, that being friendly. So I mean, God doesn't say to break tie with them. And God could have said, don't break ties with them and don't talk to them. God said, don't be friend with them. Being friend mean
Well,
like
this also says run for your life, right?
right,
You
right, right.
said it.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just also looking at these words. God doesn't
Yeah,
say
I mean,
that
you
break.
run. How how would you run for your life from someone, right?
Right,
You're
right,
not gonna
right.
want to do anything with them. You just you see their face and you run away the other way.
Right, right, right. That is so true. And then, yeah, sometimes you get confused. I mean, honestly, I'm not bragging in this factor, but truly, my father, I mean, someone that I respected so much, when he stand, I would stand up. And then when the person gave me complete answer, I mean, I just lost all that love. Now my dad wants to meet me, but I just run away all the time. I mean, this naturally coming into your heart. So that's why I'm caught in the middle of that situation where I don't even want to talk to my father. I mean, this is how bad it got in that sense. So, I mean, I know this happening from God naturally, how all that love turned into something that you don't want to even talk to that person. How that happened, I mean, this is crazy. I mean, I look at my example and I'm like, wow, this is really out of control. But this happening from God, I guess, for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, and God will always make it up to the believers. So, I mean, you might lose, a relative in some way, but God will make up for, the love and, in your life in some other way, God willing. I mean, if you pass your test, there's obviously a lot of reward for obviously, going to that. It's not easy thing.
I mean, truly, the person who has a big family and a lot of social gathering around that person, maybe hundreds of friends and a very famous person, is extremely lonely than the person who's by himself, but God is with that person. That person is a lucky person, just having God in his life, than the person who has all this social wealth and money and everything. This person is the loneliest person in reality.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
all these people
Mashallah,
there,
I
all these
mean,
people are
really that
supporting him, their lives.
really. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think, like when God says like wealth and money and success, worldly success, a lot of these things often belong to an unhappy person. So I mean, they might have all these things, but obviously, they might be surrounded by people, but I mean, in general, we know that, you could have like a lot of friends, and you could be surrounded by people all the time, but if you're unhappy, you feel lonely, you feel the emptiness and all of that. But obviously your heart, because obviously your soul is not nourished, your heart is not going to be satisfied. But if your heart is satisfied and you're the only person and nobody else is left in the world, I mean, God is going to put the contentment in your heart. You're going to be happy. You might have just enough money in your pocket for you to get by, and you might be, uh, in good health and be happy still, without all of these material things, whether it's people around you or friends or whatnot. I mean, uh, God controls our happiness and He makes it up to the believers. This is God's promise. So if these people, if God takes these people away from your life, He'll replace them with better people. Like, God says about Abraham, right? Because he abandoned these his father and these disbelievers, God says, He granted them Isaac and Jacob, right? So he made up for that for Abraham, with these children that were prophets, and so obviously God proves to us in the Quran that he's mindful of all of these things and he will reward the believers for these choices.
Yeah, mashallah. And when the two angel comes to him, God has blessed him with so much wealth that, instantly he said, just sacrifice a heifer, a calf, and roast a calf. It seems like this person is not poor person. God has blessed him with money, house, and family, and everything. Inshallah.
Yeah.
A poor person will just say, "Oh, let's just get them some dinner or something, a snack." But
Hmm.
a wealthy person will say, "Okay, let's go ahead and do that." I mean, as we know from the childhood, as our parents used to tell us, they will observe our company in school, like who do we hang out with, and they will say, okay, don't hang out with this person. This person is not a good person. So we know that whomever you hang out with, company really affects you, influences you, and even if you look at from that point of view, if you hang out with people who are not fighting you, who are very friendly with you, but they are idol worshippers, and this will inflect you. I mean, why would God say that in Surah 18 that force yourself to be with those who day and night seek God? Because that's gonna put influence on you. If you hang out with somebody who does idol worship on a routine basis, that's gonna affect you. And slowly, slowly, you may not even realize, and you end up on the we end up may end up on the wrong side.
Yeah, exactly. And God says that people who befriend people with whom God is angry, and things like that. God says they're exiled from God. And when you're exiled from God, that means you do not get any guidance. That means you're just basically fair game for Satan to just come and take you at that point. So that's to me is like pretty scary. I've also felt it, like sometimes you don't know if a person's disbeliever or not, and you start following them, you go in their company, slowly you start to lose your guidance, you start to lose your contact with God and your reverence, and this obviously as these people start influencing you, you know. Yeah, also the verses we read about um verses 5 and 6. All right. I mean, this shows to us that shows. I mean, teaches a very important lesson that we can always remember for our lives is that um, God is doing everything. So a lot of times, we may do things and we feel that these are, our achievements in some way. Like, in this case, like whatever these people gained in as spoils of war. I mean, imagine, fighting the disbelievers in a physical war and gaining some materials as part of it. I mean, obviously, to a normal I mean average human being, I mean, this could be very much of an ego boost for them, like, hey, we're so strong, we got this thing, and we got all these spoils. And we're strong and powerful. But God says that, God wants the believers to be humble, and at the same time, He wants them to know that God is the one who's doing everything, um, so that we can be truly happy in this world. And I think we have to keep reminding ourselves that God is doing everything. God is doing everything as much as we can, because that essentially, I mean, we keep forgetting it. It's not easy. I mean, I say that to myself because I keep forgetting it every now and then. But God wants us to be mindful of that and always remember that He's running everything. And so once we have that in mind, we will not get sad or upset or overexcited. in any way, knowing that God is the one who's running everything, and and also we will not be worried, and we will not be anxious about things. I mean, we'll have peace in our hearts, knowing that God is in full control. Imagine like being on a ship where you find out that, or let's say you're in a plane and you find out that the pilot is asleep, or I don't know, had a heart attack or something, and you're gonna panic that the person's not available, like present to run the ship. But in this case, and so this is how you look at this world. I mean, it looks like the world is going haywire, everything's going crazy. I mean, we're in Satan's dominion outside, everything is chaos, right? He's the king of chaos, and it's all chaos. But for a believer, they must remember that God is in full control, and he's running the whole show, whether it's around their own life or in the world in general. He's in full control. So this should really give us peace of mind and contentment.
Yeah, Masha Allah, the God is doing everything. Just imagine an example of, like, suppose your wife cooks all meal and everything, and sets up everything and dessert and everything, and then she tells you go tell the guest the food is ready, and then you go tell the guest, okay, the food is ready, and they ask you, okay, did you cook the food? And it would be so wrong to say that, yeah, I cooked the food. You know that you just did a very fraction part of that meal serving, that you just invited these people and your wife did all that. So who did the work? She did it, right? So you would not take any credit. You would say, oh no, I didn't make it, my wife did it. Why would you say I cooked the food? So you'll right away back off and tell like who really did it. So, and let's back off to the person who's cooking the food. Let's see how much work that person did, from the growing the seed to the fruit. The meat that you put in the food came from a long process which God run. The spices, the water, the air, the fire, the pots and pan that God made, the iron, everything is created by God. So first of all, you think about, you didn't do anything. The person who cooked the food did everything. And when you come to that person didn't really. You compare how the amount of work that person did is basically zero. You did put the spices, you cut the food and meat, and then you put it. But 99.9999, basically 100% of the work is done by God. So as it bad for somebody who's inviting for the lunch that I did it, is going to be similar way. It's going to be as bad as for the person who's cooking the food. It said I made that food. It would be like a idol worship statement. You would say that I did
Hmm.
cook it.
Yeah,
So
and plus you're gonna
basically,
have to sleep on the couch,
right,
most likely.
that's true. Yeah, and for that sense, the husband would be lucky to sleep on the couch, but the person who cooking the food will say, "I made it." That's far more worse, because you. I mean, this is basically everything that we do. 99.99% or 100% is done by God. God gives us, just like pushing a button. Like the example of, you have fireworks, and there's a massive amount of preparation goes to setting up the 4th of July firework, and just one push of a button. And if you're allowed to push that button and you take the credit, did you see my fireworks? How awesome was that? That's how bad is that you would say, no, I am lucky to push that button, and God allows you to push that button in this life. But God
Mm.
expects you to be thankful to God and give the right credit to Him, because otherwise, then you are yourself as an ego idol worshiper.
So anybody else has any comments or questions before we end the session, God willing? Okay. Okay, I guess maybe we can end the study, God willing. So Thank you all for joining us, God willing. Our next study is going to be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and I believe our teacher might be Nadrat or myself. Probably Nadrat. Yeah, maybe. Inshallah. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.